Okay, so here are the rails, and here is our show.
Completely off. Completely gone today. What in the world? Derailed.
Yay, you're here. Welcome to the CK and GK podcast. Let's get going.
It's Tuesday.
Yeah, it is. And it's been a little while since we've been here. We're on our summer break and we're trying to live
Yeah.
because summer is hard when you have children. And
Yeah.
we're talking about that today. We're talking about deeply feeling kids. Because if you have deeply feeling kids, it is
You become a deeply feeling adult.
right. And maybe not in all the good ways. So that's the plan. And stick around for that because we've got a lot of good information for you today.
But first, with me today is Caitlin. We'll call her the dictionary because she gives meaning to our lives.
Oh, Jenny, you're my magical little dancer. Can't
Oh, I
wait for
love
this
it.
episode. Yeah.
Maybe I'm a tiny dancer
Are you
on
a
the
tiny
sand.
dancer? Oh, okay. I can get down
I
with
don't know.
that. Shout out to Jackie, who really made my day with this 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. She said, so good. This podcast is all caps awesome. I love that
agree.
these two keep it so real. I know, right? They give such practical advice with such great stories. I'm already feeling like more of an adult after listening. Thanks, guys. That is the entire point of the show. This is supposed to help you be more of a grown up and not just a regular adult, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's
Okay.
go ahead and talk about one of the harder parts of adulthood. If you are a parent, you understand how difficult it is. If you are a parent of a deep feeling kid, um, I feel your solidarity. That's all we're going to say. So, the sources for today's episode are a couple of articles on PureWow. One of them is by Alexia Dellner. The other one is by Rachel Bowie. 2 signs you have a deeply feeling kid, according to parent whisperer Dr. Becky, and have a deeply feeling kid. This therapist approved hack will help get them to open up. And speaking of Dr. Becky, she's my other source for the episode, Dr. Becky Kennedy on Instagram. Her handle is at Dr. Becky at Good Inside. She has a book called Good Inside, A Guide to Becoming the Parent You Want to Be. And I'm going to put all that information plus a couple of helpful videos in the show notes. And I've written a very detailed blog post about the things I've learned from Dr. Becky this summer as a parent of a deeply feeling kid myself.
Yeah. I do love me some Dr. Becky.
She's amazing.
The thing I really like about her is that she's also a parent.
Yes. Of
So
deeply
she's
feeling children. So
yes.
she gets it.
She's a parenting expert who also parents. So
Yes.
she understands and she'll say, like, yeah, this didn't work today.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, is there anyone out there that I believe every single thing they say? No.
No.
But for the most part, her Good Inside podcast and her publications are pretty great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the snippets that she provides on her Instagram account are all very helpful for me. I've found ones to be very helpful. So just to preface this, there was an incident that inspired me to write this.
My kid had a huge meltdown.
Mm-hmm.
And huge. So bad that John took the marketing materials off the outside of our car because he was worried about what impact it would have on the business.
Amazing.
Yep.
Very thoughtful of him to do that. And you sent me a message that was heartbreaking to read as a parent, where it's just like, I can't do this. And I've had those moments of I can't do this. I have them more frequently than I would like to admit.
Yeah.
And I had them a lot when my child was Kit's age, 5 going on 16, right? Yeah. So it really hit me hard when you said that. And so that inspired this episode. And it's been one that's kind of percolating in the back of my head for a while as not a contemporary, but as a follower and believer of what Dr. Becky is talking about and feeling seen by her. I really wanted to share this. So like you, I'm pretty sure I have a deeply feeling kid, and they might be called DFK during this episode. Just so if you hear DFK, it means deeply feeling kid. So when I read the article that is the 2 signs you have a deeply feeling kid article, I had a moment. Yeah. And here's the quote that really got to me that I needed to share. Have you ever suspected that your kid's behavior is a little more intense than other kids? Or have you ever felt frustrated that the parenting tactics you see on Instagram just don't seem to work in your own home? If so, then you may have what child psychologist and author Dr. Becky Kennedy dubs as a, quote, deeply feeling kid. Now, she has trademarked this deeply feeling kid idea. Personally, I think I didn't put trademarks all over the episode or when I wrote the blog post about it. This is her terminology, and so that's why I'm going to use it as someone who's primarily spewing her knowledge right now. But I think it's important to define what that means and what it looks like in your own home. And if that quote resonated with you the way it did with me, I think you're going to really feel like this is important. So what does that mean? It means it's exactly what it sounds like, right? A deeply feeling kid is a kid who feels all the things and they feel them incredibly intensely. And often they feel those feelings so intensely that they can't even articulate how they're feeling.
Right.
At all. So Dr. Becky gives 2 main criteria, and these are quotes from the articles. 1, they have escalations that happen more frequently, more intensely, and they last longer than the quote unquote average child. These are kids who truly do have feelings that go from 0 to 60, and they seem like they tantrum more intensely, more often, and for longer periods of time than other kids, according to Dr. Becky. And I love that she added in this article, I think that's so important to say for parents that they are not making this up. Like,
it does feel different.
Yeah.
It feels different.
It feels really different. And I go into kind of what that feels like in the blog post I wrote for this, but I'll get back to that in a second. 2, typical parenting strategies don't work. So I personally have read the books. I've watched the Tickety Talks and the Instagram Reels. Let's be clear, mostly Instagram Reels, because that's where the grown-ups, the old people go, right? And she says, you've read all the books and watched the TikToks, and yet every time you try to, quote, name the feeling or do the thing that worked so well for your oldest kid, it backfires in your face and seems to make your child even more upset. Dr. Becky calls these, quote, front door strategies, and, well, they just don't work on DFKs. Quote, front door strategies are when we approach the kid directly, we name someone's feelings, or we say, hey, I want to help you. It's like we're right at the front door. These kids, aka the deeply feeling kids, when you do any front door strategy, they slam the door in your face.
Yes.
Yes. Oh. So for me, it was really important to find out, like, why? Like, what? Okay, that makes sense. I have to be indirect about how I approach feelings. I totally get that. Yes. Now what? Right? So, she goes on to talk about where these feelings come from. She says, for deeply feeling kids, their vulnerability sits right next to their shame. Like, hurt my heart. So when they feel vulnerable, like they trip and fall, or they make a mistake, they didn't know something was expected to happen, they lose a board game, that's a vulnerable feeling. And because this vulnerability is so shameful to DFKs, they explode. They almost experience their feelings as attackers on their body, which is why they respond with an attack. Wow. I just went, oh my gosh. Like I was reading this and I just felt my heart pounding. Like, oh my gosh. And it really does feel like you're walking on eggshells around these kids sometimes, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
The way that I kind of interpreted it was these kids are always on the defensive. They're always triggered, right? As the children would say, as the youths say triggered, right? All the time, because they just are constantly aware of whatever, they're doing that may or may not go wrong, right? So,
Right.
Oh, okay. So the bigger thing is, how do you support these kids, right? And this is an example which may or may not be drawn on personal experiences. Your child messes up their drawing. They immediately have a big reaction or a meltdown, whatever, calling the drawing stupid, and maybe, just maybe, saying the same thing about himself. Themselves. Your instinct is immediately to try and help them out in that moment, or you sympathize with that child and you say things like, of course you're not stupid, every artist makes mistakes, which would be the right thing to say for a kid who is not a deeply feeling kid. If you have a deeply feeling kid, I'm going to ask this question: how often has that worked for you? Because for me, it's a big fat 0.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the scenario I'm painting for you. Okay, so here's what not to do when your DFK's feelings escalate and they reject you, because that would be what happens if I try to say to my child, you're a wonderful artist, but every artist makes mistakes, and every artist makes mistakes, whatever. Right. You might respond by saying, okay, fine. You don't want my help right now. I'm just going to leave, which I have totally done.
Oh,
and
sure.
I'm doing it for a couple of reasons. One, I'm trying to maintain my own composure, because I'm like, well, forget you. I'm trying to help you. And then you're going to talk to me like that. Like,
yeah, no, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. But this is not the thing to do, which of course makes a lot of sense. Dr. Becky says, this confirms their worst fears, that they really are as bad as they think they are. Cut to me sobbing in the corner. Like, oh, this hurts my heart so bad. Okay. So instead, she says, sit with them and let them know you are not afraid of their big emotions. So I'm not just going to sit there and be like, I'm not afraid of your big feelings. Like,
right.
that doesn't do it. But what she says does do it is you sit there and you do nothing.
What?
Yeah. She says you do basically nothing. You can't say anything in that situation because the shame is so high. How many times, just think about this off the top of your head, you want to have words to say to someone, but there literally are none that will make the situation better. So you just say nothing. Like, right. I'm here. That's what you say, right? When someone experiences a traumatic event, or a loved one passes, or they get a horrible diagnosis, whatever it is, you're like, I have no words. So what do? You don't say anything, and you just say, I love you and I'm here for you, right?
Right.
So in this situation, you don't say any words. You just sit there. You stay with them. And she says that hugging or physically comforting them can actually escalate those anxious, vulnerable feeling. Yeah, me too. The only thing that you should do is just in your head, just say, yep, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this, which is, let's be clear, the hardest freaking part of this whole situation is maintaining your cool, right? So if you can sit there and do nothing, that's the hardest part of all of this. She says it's important to be there because your presence actually communicates to them, I'm going to keep you safe and I can stand you when you're like this, so you're not so bad after all. Like, oh, I know, right? She says when the moment is over, then you can offer those support strategies. And then when a moment like that happens again, they're more likely to be able to use a skill. But here's another tough part about this. With DFKs, you can't just talk to them about it later. I don't know if you've ever tried to do that but I have. And I have to remember, and she says to remember this too, one, normal parenting strategies don't work. So with another kid, you maybe could say, like, maybe they're coloring or whatever, and you could say, like, hey, remember that feeling you had earlier? I want to talk about that because there's something that needs to be said about this here. But that won't work for your kid if it's a deeply feeling kid. And these kids have a really hard time articulating their feelings as it is. So trying to approach it and have a conversation about it is just not gonna work. So if you were to say, hey, you had a big reaction earlier, let's talk about that, to a non-DFK kid, they will probably be able to talk to you about it. But
Right.
it's too direct and it's too intense for a deeply feeling kid.
Well,
So
it just puts that shame spiral
exactly,
back on, right?
exactly. They'll shut down and you're no better off than you were before. And in my case, you're probably going to start the meltdown all over again, which already lasted for a ridiculous amount of time. So we're not going to do that.
Oh, no. This one that we had last weekend was so long that Kit slept for several hours afterwards.
He just completely wore himself out.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so hard. Oh, bless you for accomplishing it. Oh, okay. So here's
I just lived through it.
Well, that's something. Some days that's
so did
something.
he, which that's the real something.
Yes, I understand that feeling very well. Oof. Okay. So here's what you do instead. I love this strategy. I'm going to use it. I haven't employed it directly yet, but I have kind of done this as a workaround. But she calls it the thumbs up strategy. And here's how it works. You, as the parent, go up to your kid when they're in their shame spiral or whatever it is, after they've calmed down a little bit. And you say, hey, I want to play a game. You've got to close your eyes and I'm going to say something. And if it's right, you give me a thumbs up. If it's kind of right, but kind of wrong, you give me a thumb to the side. And if I couldn't be any more wrong, or I'm completely wrong, you give me a thumbs down. And then you're going to start saying some statements to them that you feel accurately describe their feelings, and then gets them to acknowledge those feelings. So because these kids have a hard time talking about their feelings, you've done two things by giving them this thumbs up strategy. You've given them a nonverbal way to articulate what they're going through. And at least for my child, he hates making eye contact because it's like that shame vulnerability thing. And now he doesn't have to do that.
You
can just give me a thumb.
That's good. Yeah.
And I've said to my son, like, no, look at me, look at my eyes. And he can't do it. It's hard for him. So this is a much safer way to go about this.
And they don't have to read your face either.
Exactly. And if you're like me and you have a face that displays very accurately how you're feeling in every moment, that's a problem for them, right? And these kids are sensitive and they're going to pick up on it. So I love this closing the eyes thing. So you give them an example statement. Maybe it was a little bit upsetting that your artwork didn't look the way that you wanted it to look. And then you wait and you give your DFK the chance to give you the thumbs up, thumbs middle, thumbs down feeling. Okay. Or you try something completely ridiculously funny, which might help out a little bit too, right? Break the ice. Like, you were upset today because you asked me to dress up like a hot dog and I told you there wasn't enough mustard in the house to make this costume work. And they give you the thumbs up, thumbs middle, thumbs down, right?
Right.
And Dr. Becky actually says that if you have a DFK, they love rejecting a parent. So a funny statement is pretty likely to get a response. So even leading with that might be a good way to get your kid to open up, and then you kind of work your way back towards the more accurate one, right?
I see.
Because the goal is to land on a statement that accurately describes their feeling and gets them to acknowledge it. She says, if you achieve that point of connection, aka a response, that's it. You leave it right there. You don't keep going. You don't say things like, here's how you handle it. Here's what we do next time. You leave it at that. You win because you got an answer that articulates their feelings. Cling to it and don't let it go.
Wow. That is hard.
It is so hard, but it is such a positive step in the right direction. And then from there, you can move forward, because the first step is to try and get them to acknowledge non-verbally. And then as they get better and better at it, perhaps they will even start to pick up on that and start to share with you how they're feeling on their own. So a deeply feeling kid, how to work with them. There's more strategies in a very, very detailed blog post that I wrote out for as a follow-up to this episode. It's already published. You can go grab it anytime you want to. It does take a little while to read, but if you have a deeply feeling kid, you probably are going to invest the time. I highly recommend going and taking a look, and I will link it as a follow-up to this episode's blog post so that you can take a look whenever you want.
And if you're on our mailing list, you already got it.
You did already get it. If you haven't signed up for our email list, you can do that on our website at ckandgkpodcast.com. We will be right back.
Okay, that was heavy.
It was
a
heavy.
little
Can we talk
heavy.
about something that's
So let's
more
lighten
fun
it up
now?
a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I'm obsessed with right now.
Yeah.
The 18U women's flag football nationals are on ESPN.
Y'all. This is amazing.
Well,
Tell me more.
So we are recording over a weekend. So this past weekend, if I'm in the future, was the National Flag Football NFL Championships. So much like Little League Baseball, NFL flag is a real organization, right? There are different recreational flag football leagues throughout the country, but NFL flag is one of them, and they have a national championship. Just like Little League Baseball is an actual brand, and they have a Little League World Series.
Yes. Okay.
But unlike the Little League World Series, the NFL Flag Championship has one team to represent all 32 teams in the NFL.
Oh.
So it is a tournament style championship. And the team that is represented by the Falcons is the Texas Fury, which I know the Falcons aren't a Texas team. It's fine. The Texans and Cowboys must have already been taken or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the Texas Fury is the team from Austin.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
So they have, to this point, they have won. But it's so cool to see these girls that like go to the high school down the street from me playing in the national championships in Canton, Ohio, the home of the NFL Hall of Fame.
That's amazing. Well,
and the people who are talking about this game, they're real sportscasters. Like Peyton and Eli are out there.
Oh,
it's
that's
cool.
Awesome. That's super cool.
This is a revolution, y'all. Women are taking over this sport. They are not showing the 18U boys. They're showing 15U boys.
Oh, wow. Did you see the line that Serena Williams dropped during the ESPYs a few weeks ago?
Mm-mm.
She said she was hosting it, and then she came out with, oh God, what is that adorable woman from Abbott Elementary, the star of that show, was there.
I do not know.
She's Quinta Brunson, that's her name. And then Venus Williams was there, and Venus was like, there's no shame in watching women's sports. Women's sports are sports. Like, please watch them and enjoy them. And Serena goes, except for you, Chiefs guy quarterback, who I don't want to name because I don't want him to get any credit. She was like, you don't need to watch it. We don't need you. That guy was, I don't even want to give him any credit, so I don't want to name him at all. But I was like, get it. Like, that's amazing. Good for the 18 women's flag team. Texas Fury, I'm hoping they're doing well in the tournament. Again, when this comes out, we'll know more. But I wish them all the best. That's amazing.
I will close with a quote from Ava Wallace, who is their quarterback. And she said, and like, I cried.
Oh.
She said, we are on this field for all the girls who can't be.
Oh. Oof.
She's like a high school senior.
That's amazing.
And she's saying we're playing for all the girls who can't.
I love
It's
that.
awesome. Oh.
Okay, so my obsession is related to what I just said, which is just this like new emphasis, maybe it's not new, but this push towards watching women's sports. And I think it's so interesting, like, especially as the Olympics come around,
Right.
there's
who's
this
the star? It's Katie Ledecky.
It's Katie Ledecky. It's Simone Biles, like, who's coming back after a major battle with mental health issues and killing it right now. Like, amazing. And the amount of pressure that's on these women, or Sha'Carri Richardson, the track star who was not able to compete and then is now back, and this woman is just covered in glitz and glam. I mean, the drip is real with this woman, right? I love the emphasis on women in sports and what they're doing. Did you hear that Allison Felix started a daycare for women at the Olympics? Which is such an amazing slap in the face to her former sponsor, Nike, who refused to pay her what she was worth after she had a baby. Like, such amazing emphasis on women in sports right now. So that's my obsession. If we're talking about 18U women's flag nationals on ESPN, then mine can be this women in sports push. I love it.
Love that.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Okay.
So my gem of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Kit had his first day of kindergarten.
Oh, he's so big.
He is attending a nature school.
Ooh.
It's on 2 acres and it has like 50 oak trees on it.
Amazing.
It's amazing. As we pull up for the first day of kindergarten, there is a hawk on top of the school.
Whoa.
People might not know this, but the sound that you associate with the bald eagle, the whatever, that is actually a red-tailed hawk call.
Oh, that I did not know.
And so we are hearing this call and we see him just perched on the roof of the school. Then another one flies by. There's a whole family that lives there. And because there's a whole family of hawks that live there, there is a family of rabbits that lives under the bush in the playground because they know they're protected. Like, the kids aren't going to be able to catch the rabbits, but the hawks aren't going to try and get them when the kids are on the playground.
Oh my gosh.
So, like, it's legit nature school. Like, welcome to the circle of life. It's so cool.
Keep the bunnies inside the playground area. Please and thank you.
Don't chase the bunnies. They need to be safe here. Otherwise, they'll be the hawk's breakfast.
Right. Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, I mean, how is he liking it so far? Is it good?
Oh my gosh. He loves it. Yeah.
Okay.
He really likes it. So,
first day of kinder. He's so big. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, once again, my gem of the week takes us back to the esthetician's office. Because this time I walked in and a gentleman comes out. Now, gentlemen go to the esthetician all the time.
Absolutely. Yes. We've all seen 40-year-old virgin.
Yes. However, this was not a 40-year-old virgin style appointment.
Okay.
I'm just going to
leave it there.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Well, and it was obviously his first time at this appointment. And he's talking to the lovely ladies behind the counter, and he's audibly, like, I'm kind of around a wall, so like he can see that I'm there because he saw me as he came out of the area, but where he is standing and checking out, he cannot see me. Right. Again, he knows I'm there, and he he starts saying things audibly, and one of the things he says is, I have a whole new level of respect for my girlfriend now.
Oh, wow. He experienced some discomfort.
I would say so, yes. And I am cracking up, like loudly laughing behind this wall. And one of the women is like, well, like, the more often you do it, like, the less it hurts, just because of hair cycle of growth, and you get used to it, and like all these things. And he turns back to look dead at me, like, as I'm like standing there kind of peeking my head around the corner to see, like, what is this man saying and what else can I eavesdrop and listen to right now? Right. And he turns back to look at me after she says this, and he goes, I don't know, does it? I just looked at him and I was like, depends on your esthetician and how often you do it, and you're lucky that you don't have to deal with hormonal cycles, which make it hurt worse. And he just was like, oh my gosh, such a good point. And And he just continues to talk about it. And then I come out, and of course he's like still there.
Oh my gosh! Leave!
No, please leave. I
Ugh.
could not stop laughing. I was in my car after it happened. I mean, it's like a 8-minute appointment at most.
Yeah,
like you walk
it's
in
so
and walk
fast.
right back out. Yeah. And I'm in my car cackling about this. And I immediately texted my husband, and I was like, you just wait till I tell you what I heard. Oh man. All right.
With that,
Don't
forget to review us. Give us those little 5 stars.
We love those.
Write something nice about it.
Share it with your friends.
Yeah, share it with your friends.
Yeah.
And make good choices.
And does it get easier? Depends. Does it get easier to handle your deeply feeling kid? Also depends.
Yeah, for real.
But you can do it. You got this. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Hey friends, thanks for listening to the CK and GK podcast. Find us at CK and GK podcast on Instagram and Twitter, and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or anywhere else that you pod. See you next time.